Claire's and David's home situation was very normal until Claire gave birth to a beautiful daughter. Ever since that moment, strange things have started happening. Little Rosy just kept touching her belly and it just kept growing. Claire immediately called the doctor and they had to go to the hospital immediately. The doctor knew he had seen this before. How will he break this news to poor Claire? Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell icon. Let's proceed with the video. The doctor told Claire and David that they had no time to lose. They had to rush to the hospital. This could be very dangerous. The doctor had a feeling of what was going on, but he had to confirm his suspicions. Dave grabbed their little angel and rushed to the car. Claire was in complete panic. What on earth was happening to their little baby? All the previous tests did not indicate any health issues. However, every day little Rosy kept touching her belly and it was visible that the belly was growing larger over time. This could be a life or death situation. Finally arriving at the hospital, the couple was set down by the doctor's assistant. She told them that the doctor would come as quickly as he could. David was growing even more worried. He had no time to wait. He demanded to see the doctor. The doctor told David to calm down, but David wasn't having it. When the other patient heard what was going on, she told the doctor that he should quickly help them out. She was not in any danger. She could see from David's reaction that it was urgent. The doctor quickly stood up and ran to little Rosy. He felt like he had underestimated the situation, and when he saw Rosy, he turned pale. He quickly had to run some tests. He thought that she was healthier, but this could get very tricky. The doctor called Claire and David inside of his office. He asked some basic questions about their lives. He needed to determine what was going on. Then Claire told him about their life and lifestyle, and the doctor's attitude completely changed. "What have you done?" It was like the doctor blamed Claire for everything. She had no idea what was going on or what she had done wrong. The only thing she could think of was the safety of her child. She did not realize what she had actually done to the baby. The doctor quickly rushed out of the room with their baby. When carrying the crying newborn baby to the test department, the doctor could not help but think, how did this poor woman get herself into this situation? A lifestyle like this brings so many risks with it. How could this be worth it? At the moment that he took the baby away from her parents, she kept crying. It was like the baby was in pain. The doctor had called for the backup. He kept on trusting in his own ability to help this child, but he definitely needed help. When putting the baby down, it finally stops crying a little bit, and the doctors get a chance to inspect him a little bit closer. But it isn't until the doctors take a closer look at the belly that everything changes. He immediately knows what he is looking at and freezes in his tracks. His breath sticks as he mumbles to himself, "This can't be true." Leaving the baby in the care of a nurse, he rushes back to tell the waiting parents. They have to know immediately. How could Claire have been so reckless? The doctor asked Claire if she had noticed anything during the pregnancy, and this is when Claire started crying. She thought there was something seriously wrong with the baby and that it was her fault. That is when she started explaining. Claire had stumbled out of bed on Tuesday morning. Her head hurt and her stomach felt even worse. She could feel the pressure build in her throat as she ran to the bathroom to throw up. Claire hated the feeling, but it was familiar to her. She got like that when she was hungover. However, ironically, she had not been drinking the night before. Claire spent another 15 minutes in the bathroom until she eventually felt fine enough to head downstairs for breakfast. Claire was immediately greeted by her mother commenting on how pale she looked. Claire sighed and relayed her symptoms to her mom, who listened intently. Claire watched as her mother turned white as she listed the symptoms. "What's wrong?" Claire urged. She felt self-conscious now. Her mom was a registered nurse and had been in the profession for more than 2 decades. Her reaction to Claire's symptoms caused the young men to worry. Finally, her mom spoke up. She asked Claire to get a pregnancy test done. Who was the father? Claire was nervous. The results were frightening. Claire's mom was right. She was pregnant. Claire sat opposite her parents, who stared at her in silence. They were both waiting for her to answer the question they had placed. After a few days of avoiding them, Claire decided it was time to face her parents. She told them she was planning to get an abortion. However, her parents were against this. They convinced her to keep the baby as they would do everything to help her raise it. Although she had agreed to not abort the baby, settling into being pregnant was proving far more difficult than she could imagine. For one, it was the opposite of her current lifestyle. Part of being pregnant is giving up certain things which can be bad for the baby. Things like drinking and hard partying. Things that Claire enjoys so much. Claire continued on with her secret habits for a few more weeks, but finally, the moment of truth had arrived. It was time for her first checkup with the doctor. The checkup was going well as the doctor asked Claire a few questions to assess the health of the baby. That was when Claire found herself blurting out the truth. Claire confessed everything to her doctor. She admitted that although she was trying to stay healthy for the baby, she felt almost compelled to go out and party at night. Claire and the doctor have a long and serious talk about the risk and potential consequences for the baby, and by the end of it, it finally seems to click for Claire. David, her current friend, is incredibly supportive of Claire's decision. He let her know that he will be there for the baby if it is his and pledge to help her during her pregnancy. This motivates Claire to do even more for the baby as she turned a new leaf. From then on, the pregnancy went relatively smooth. Claire spent the rest of her pregnancy doing her best to stay healthy. One afternoon, Claire is laying on the couch watching a series when she suddenly feels a stinging pain in her stomach. She moans loudly in pain. Her mother rushes in and immediately knows what's happening. Claire's water broke. Claire's mom held her as they both made their way to the car. She supported her daughter into the backseat and quickly started the drive to the hospital. Truthfully, she was in pain as each contraction passed through her in a painful wave. She found her thoughts were clouded by other concerns. Will the baby be healthy? Will she be able to be a good mother? All questions will be answered very soon. Just as Claire began to focus on delivery, the door to the delivery room opened up. It was the doctor who arrived to prep Claire for the delivery. A few minutes later, David showed up. However, this time the room felt silent on his arrival. The room stayed silent for a second. No one seemed to know what to say. When the silence finally broke, it came from an unexpected person. The doctor spoke in surprise. "What are you doing here, David?" The sound of a familiar voice caused David to look up. He could not believe his eyes. The doctor and David stared at each other for a moment before awkwardly explaining the situation. As it turned out, the head doctor was David's uncle. David was aware his uncle worked at the hospital, but had been too shocked by the news to consider the possibility that they would run into each other. The doctor and the nurses waited in confusion for an explanation. Finally, red in the face, David explained the situation concerning the baby's paternity to the doctor. The doctor nodded and listened silently. It was clear he was disappointed in David, but he said nothing. He had other priorities. The baby was on the way. Luckily, it all took 30 minutes, and soon the first cries of the baby could be heard. It was a beautiful baby girl, and Claire could finally breathe a sigh of relief as she watched her daughter smile in her arms. However, this didn't last long as real worries began to set in. Claire's mind had faded deep into her thoughts when the doctors finally swung open once more. The doctor smiled. He had some good news to share with everyone. The baby was in perfect health, or was it? Claire was elated. She brought the baby home with her to wait on the DNA test that was being done. David accompanied her home. That is when it started happening. Every day the belly of the child started growing. She kept touching her belly like something was wrong. They had to get to the hospital. The baby was placed in the nearby crib to rest. The doctor was afraid that Claire's lifestyle had indeed affected the baby. When inspecting the belly, he noticed something. The newborn revealed something that had the doctor reacting quickly. The doctor was shocked and a little embarrassed. He had not noticed this before. He has solved 2 mysteries in the span of just a couple of seconds. He realized who the father is, and he knew why the belly kept growing. Right there on her belly was a large birthmark. While the presence of a birthmark may not be alarming and is certainly not a sign of a birth defect, in fact, almost all babies had a few birthmarks across their skin. But the doctor was sure he had seen this particular one before. It was a birthmark he had seen many years before on a similar-faced, brown-haired baby. David had almost the exact same birthmark in the exact same spot, and with birthmarks having a chance to the hereditary, it looked like David was the father. Both David and Claire were happy to receive the news. Not only had their suspicions been confirmed, but they were finding life as parents suited them far better than they would have ever imagined. A few months after the birth of the baby, David and Claire started hanging around quite nicely, and still cared for their little girl, Rosy. And good, all good. What did you think of this story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video and subscribe. See you next time.